Well, hi everybody. It's Tuesday. Time for this week's video. Get ready. Hey, so today I just wanted to share my observance of a lot of so-called grace preachers, grace teachers, uh, grace promoters on the internet, and grace group members, and how they still talk about sin, and when they refer to sin, they're always referring to something um, in reference to the Old Testament law and commandments. You know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and that is their evidence of sin, and they call them sins, and they thereby say that the Old Testament commandments and law are still in effect. At least their their special list of them. Not everybody goes for all 613 of the laws in the Old Testament, but um, they have their favorites, and they'll cite anything from sexual sin to some sort of other moral sin, and then there's venial sins, and there's mortal sins, and there's this sin, and there's that sin, and they don't understand that they are being um, uh, I lost the word. They're contradicting themselves, or at least they're contradicting their grace message. See, the gospel of grace is um, the gospel that law has passed away because of a new covenant. That law was part of an old covenant, and so and it's really funny because to them, these particular rules, when they're broken, that is to them sin, and they miss the point entirely. In Romans chapter 5, Paul spoke about there was one sin, and that was the sin of Adam, and it condemned everyone. And one of the examples of this that's really a pure, perfect example is when Noah landed the ark. Up until that time, God had only given man uh, the herb of the field and the fruit of the tree to eat. He had not allowed man to eat meat. It was just vegetation, basically. So when the ark landed, God told Noah that he gave them everything that moved on the earth as meat to them. That and anything that moves is anything that moves, whether it's a slow turtle or a fast rabbit or a um, worm, whatever it is. So these things were all okay to eat. There was nothing sinful about it. And then ages and ages later, along comes this law from Moses. And all these things that moved, he wiped out at least half of them off the menu and said, if you eat of them, it's a sin. It's a sin against the law. It never was sin prior to that. It was just a sin against the law. But it was just one of 613 transgressions that could happen in that law. And here's the point. The point is they took those 613 rules and they tried to be righteous because by obeying the rules. Problem is that law said if you broke one of the rules, you were guilty of breaking of every other rule as well. So if you murdered somebody, you also were a thief and a shellfish eater and everything else. So that's the way that worked. The whole purpose of giving that law and making sure it had to completely be obeyed was to show the people the condition of sin that existed that made them unrighteous to begin with. People were unrighteous because of the condition of sin that came by way of Adam. That law of rules and regulations, it was only designed to show them they could not, in their own selves, make themselves righteous. It was just to show the people that this condition of sin existed, and it was impossible for them to make themselves righteous by obeying that law. And even Paul says that sin always existed prior to the law, and the law just showed the people that this is the issue. You don't believe, you are unrighteous because of the condition of sin. Well, this will prove it to you. So Paul said, he even went one step further. He said, even if you try to invoke one of those laws as a sign of righteousness, that is your attempt at being righteous on your own, and that is self-righteousness. And he said, and he went one step further after that and said, if you do that, you are fallen from grace. You have fallen from grace, and you were a sucker to think that you could, even by obeying one law or your 12 favorite laws or whatever, that is evidence of your righteousness or sinlessness. Paul said, because of the covenant of grace and peace, the gospel of grace and peace, you are righteous and sinless by the faith and the blood and the obedience of Jesus Christ. Not of yourself, but by him. Self-righteousness is futile.